Chapter 166, Kim Dokja's Love 5. Han Soo-young bit her lips besides me. When did you become so close to him, that psychopath? We aren't close. You had a very trusting expression when you said those words. You are mistaken. I trust the Dokibus more than I do him. If I believed in Yoo Jong-hyuk, it was in his experience, not his personality. This was a guy with 3 times the experience, and he learnt various types of information from the 41st round Shin Yusong. Furthermore, Paradise was originally his main responsibility. He took care of it well in the second regression, so he should do better this time. I'm a bit worried. I couldn't be completely relieved because I didn't trust his personality. I had made various preparations for the party members to attack Paradise, but I couldn't be perfect. I was a reader, not a reader, and Yoo Jong-hyuk was a regressor sunfish. I hope he felt a lot better since his last psychotic break. Han Soo-young spoke with an understanding expression. Well, if you're worried then you can go and watch. You have a skill to watch it in real time anyway. You are aware of it. I didn't know until now. Well, Han Soo-young had watched me take over Yoo Jong-hyuk last time. I struggled for a moment before telling her. Then I'll go, please wait. How much are you going to give me? Why do you want coins every time? You should give a bit of free service for once. Then do it quickly. I can't deal with some enemies alone. If something happens then just wake me up. I closed my eyes and fell asleep. The exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, Stage 3 has been activated. Soon after Stage 3 was activated, the voices of the people thinking about me started to be heard. I set aside a few voices and chose the one with the widest scenery. The shaking began from the center of Paradise. The street stalls were overturned by an intense shock wave that shook the entire ground. Ayak, what is this? A monster. Everyone looked around, but they couldn't figure out the situation. Maybe it was because they enjoyed peace for too long. Their cerebral cortex, which had always assumed the worst, were now brainwashed to only imagine the safest future. The guards will resolve it, don't worry. Hang in there. In the center of the explosion, Yoo Jong-hyuk saw the incarnations of Paradise. There were faces he knew and faces he didn't know. In the first regression, Yoo Jong-hyuk had been betrayed for trying to save them, and in the second regression, Yoo Jong-hyuk destroyed this place with his own hands. Finally, the third regression. Some people held onto Yoo Jong-hyuk and asked him questions as he walked from the blast. What the hell is happening? The people who had just been selling fruit or harvesting crops stared at him with frightened expressions. Yoo Jong-hyuk also faced them. It was definitely a story, even if it wasn't a scenario. Yoo Jong-hyuk knew the reason. When he saw Paradise for the first time, he agreed with Reinhardt's intention and protected this place. Help me, please. Of course, it was all in vain. Paradise was no different from the scenario. Just as the scenarios kept exploiting the incarnations, Paradise was a place supported by incarnations turned into fertilizer. There was one thing Yoo Jong-hyuk realized after destroying the place several times. Giant stories always ate small stories. The only laws involved stories, and this was the providence of Star Stream. Yoo Jong-hyuk told the people, Paradise will soon cease to exist. Find something that you can protect yourself, then defend it. The monsters started running out from the passage that Yoo Jong-hyuk and the party members created. The incarnations shrieked as they watched the giant claws coming from underground. Some guards belatedly ran to protect the incarnations, but it wasn't enough to stop all the monsters. Why are they here? The Lord, where's the Lord? Many guards fell down from one strike of the monsters. The guard captain just barely managed to escape in time. Yoo Jong-hyuk cut off the limbs of the incoming monsters and looked around. Yong Hee-won and Lee Hyun-sung were evacuating people from various places. Yoo Jong-hyuk muttered, "It is amazing that you survived up to this point. They might die for people who didn't even know their names. It was the influence of Kim Dokja. It was a miracle they could make it here with such a heart." No, I was able to come to this place because of those people. Yu Jonghyuk frowned after hearing Yu Sanga's words. I wasted time because of you. I heard that Dr. SSI was here when I contacted Olympus. The information is either wrong or someone is manipulating the information. Or perhaps Kim Dokja somehow manipulated the information. Either way, it wasn't a favorable situation for Yu Jonghyuk. Originally, the strategy to clear paradise shouldn't be done in this way. In fact, the current paradise was the more unsuitable place to attack. The branches of perpetual motion came up from the ground and soared to the sky. This was the story of Demon Marquis Reinheit. It was the body of paradise, the perpetual motion plant that was sustained by souls. Some monsters climbed on the branches and were released above ground. The monsters, who had been starving for a long time underground, discovered their prey and roared as they scattered all over the place. There was the 5th-grade dark tracker, the 4th-grade Lubal tiger, and even unknown 3rd-grade species. Quack. In the midst of this terrible carnival, the incarnations found the Lord. They believed he was the salvation who could save them from this tragedy. Lord. Then the plant moved. The vines stretched out like tentacles. The tip of the sharp vines pierced the monsters to protect the people of paradise. The incarnations cheered. They knew there was only one powerful being in paradise. This is the Lord. Lord, please rest assured. The incarnations' hearts were caught as they listened to Reinheit's voice. Our paradise won't fall so easily. Everyone believed this, at least until the guard captain discovered something in the smoke. Lord! A familiar face was growing from a bud at the end of a branch. Yuak! The frightened guard captain collapsed on the ground. A monster! The guard captain, who had long vowed allegiance, lost his composure when he saw Reinheit was one with the plant. The appearance of the demon's true body was terrible. Hadel. The guard captain confirmed the Lord's true appearance and shook with fear. The power that Reinheit radiated was terrible. It was thanks to Reinheit's legendary story, Paradise of Despair. It finished well. I needed food to recover. The flying vines started to swallow the people of paradise, including the guards. The vines pierced the incarnations and sucked their small stories. The inhabitants either became mummies or were turned into demons. Stop! The hell flames burned several branches. However, there was no end to them. Yong Hee-won shouted, I thought this was the place you had to protect. What are you doing? That was until you guys showed up. Reinheit laughed. His upper body emerged from the highest branch, and he looked at the landscape of paradise. Paradise is already over. The incarnations shook with fear in front of the gigantic perpetual motion. The residents who were in awe of the Lord just a moment ago could no longer be found. This is why the presence of small stories is unavoidable. You have lived on a small tree all your life and didn't know it was actually a forest. One by one, the incarnations realized the identity of the world they lived in. No, maybe they already knew the truth but were ignoring it. Thus, I will restart everything. Like an umbrella, the branches shot up and started to cover all of paradise. It was as if it wanted to absorb all of paradise. Yong Hee-won stared at the scale and was completely lost. How could they hurt that? Could humans fight and win against that? Then a huge explosion occurred from one side of the branches. Along with the roar, the branches covering the sky were broken. It was like a huge hole in the roof of paradise. Truly great, you are. There was sincere admiration in Reinheit's voice. There was a man with a huge presence under the damaged roof. Needless to say, it was Yu Jonghyuk. You have gone beyond a human. Surpassing humans. The words that sounded like rhetoric had a completely different meaning to beings like Reinheit. You reached such a level in only the 9th scenario. Kim Dokja was great, but you are the real monster. A mighty presence was filling Yu Jonghyuk's body. Yu Jonghyuk, whose eyes were closed, had exceeded his limits by mobilizing all his capabilities. The Rock King's gloves increase his strength by 2 levels. The Gukryong's skin increases strength by 1 level. The heavenly sword of gathering clouds increases strength by 4 levels. The skill buff increases strength by 3 levels. Once strength broke through level 100, a tremendous energy filled Yu Jonghyuk's whole body. He remembered the words of his teacher, breaking the sky sword saint. First course of transcendence is to go beyond the limits of the body. Most incarnations thought there was a limit to becoming strong through their efforts alone. That's why they tried to get better sponsors and show off to the stronger constellations. However, the universe was large, and some people disagreed with such cowardice. There were those who didn't get a good sponsor or a sponsor at all. There were those who dream of becoming one with their own efforts, not the assistance of an absolute existence. Second course is to train all skills to the limit. The skills that existed in the world were stigmas left behind by someone. Train all those skills to the limit. As if climbing a ladder, try and explore the limits of the system. The constellations devoured stories and strengthened their influence, constantly tempering their existence into a story. Final course is to kick away the ladder. Forget everything you have accumulated so far. Forget the level, forget the skills, and forget the story. After all, the system that many beings choose is the universal one. The important thing is that you find your own story. Training, training, and training. Going beyond the limits of the skill with extreme story and become a story. This was the peak of mortality that could be compared to constellations. Those who had talent and worked hard were able to achieve transcending the limits of their species. In honor of their noble endeavors, the star stream called them transcendent, despite not being constellations. These are the minimum condition to enter the seat of transcendence. Yu Jonghyuk had already achieved transcendence in the last regression. He had already reached it once, so it wasn't difficult to climb up again. Only physical conditions and time were needed. Yu Jonghyuk's golden aura was formed around the heavenly sword of gathering clouds. Despite obviously using a skill, the message about the skill usage didn't pop up. It was because this power wasn't using the system. It was a power built up by Yu Jonghyuk alone. Reinhardt, I beat you in the last round. Yu Jonghyuk aimed 2 swords towards the perpetual motion that had become a huge forest. This time I will kill you. Chapter 167, Kim Dokja's Love 6. The air burst like a fighter jet had passed by. The places hit by the golden energy cracked apart. The monsters caught in the crack were torn apart without even being able to scream. The golden light blew away 4th and 5th grade species. Breaking the sky sword. This was the road of the sword that broke the sky. Even the 3rd grade monsters, which could easily destroy the area in 10 minutes, screamed because they couldn't resist this sword. How long had Yu Jonghyuk practiced this sword? 10 years. 20 years. If he combined the training and the time-dark dimension, it would be well over 100 years. Thanks to all these years, Yu Jonghyuk was able to reach the peak of humanity. My physical limits is still low, but I can barely do it. Yu Jonghyuk controlled his overloaded body and constantly swung his sword. This transcendent power couldn't last long, no matter how strong he was. His level was also far less than his teacher, the Breaking the Sky Sword Saint. Nevertheless, his attacks were far beyond the general skills category. The monsters exploded like firecrackers and Reinhardt was amazed. The rumors of transcendence aren't false, but how can a human who isn't a returnee? Reinhardt didn't finish his words. The place where he had just been located was torn apart from the ether blades of Yu Jonghyuk's heaven-shaking sword. It was a truly formidable destructive power. This was the power of the splitting the sky energy. Be careful, people are getting caught up in it. Yu Sangha shouted at Yu Jonghyuk, but he ignored her. In the first place, he was good at destroying things, not saving things. This is the master of a legendary grade story. It isn't easy to defeat him. In paradise, his strength is equivalent to a 2nd grade monster. In fact, Reinhardt's perpetual motion showed no signs of receding despite the damage. Rather, the branches were angry and absorbed more of the humans around them. Alec. The rate at which the perpetual motion grew was faster than the rate at which humans were rescued. In addition, there was still a high number of monsters. Usanga opened her mouth as she used Hermes' walking method and Theseus' resolution to kill the surrounding beasts. It doesn't end. Where have they been hiding these monsters? The monsters are the exports of paradise. Exports? Yu Jonghyuk looked up at the air for a short moment. The Dakibus who said they wouldn't interfere were gathering, as if it was a fun sight. This is difficult. It looks like a new farm is needed. Usanga didn't immediately understand what they meant. In the midst of the surging beasts, she could see monsters that were familiar from previous scenarios. 9th grade ground rats, 8th grade grolls. The monsters used in the scenario, have you ever wondered where they came from? Yu Jonghyuk asked her. They came from another world. There is a limit using that method. The Dakibus are busy and don't have time for inefficient work. Usanga stared blankly at Usanga, the Dakibus and the monsters of paradise. She was frozen and it was Jung Hee-won, using Hell Flame's ignition by her side, who reacted first. Saying this now. Yu Jonghyuk nodded. Paradise is the source of the monsters of Starstream. To be precise, it is one of them. In Jung Hee-won's mind, some things that hadn't been understood finally fit together. The second floor of Dark Castle. The reason why the Dakibus, who were involved in everything, didn't interfere for the first time. If she thought about it, there was a reason for everything. Dakibus, a new paradise can be created. In the distance, the upper half of the restored Reinheit grew on the perpetual motion again. There might be a fairly low volume for a while, but the restoration will soon be completed. Please don't cancel the contract. The despair and desperation inside him was something that couldn't be shared. This was a world that sacrificed the incarnations to protect the incarnations. Reinheit was devoted to his beliefs, even if those beliefs made him a monster. The incarnations belatedly discovered the Dakibus floating in the air and shouted, "Dakibai, Dakibai. Has the scenario started? Why do this? We didn't anything wrong." The Dakibus just laughed. "Why, you did nothing wrong. This wasn't what we intended, ha ha ha." Jung Hee-won bit her lips at the sight. She didn't want to see any more. Is there no way? Of course there was a way. If he used giant body transformation and then transcendence, he would be able to press Reinheit with his strength. However, the consumption is too big. All of paradise will fly away. The regressor Yu Jonghyuk didn't favor such inefficient fighting. If we want to kill him, we have to get rid of the roots of the perpetual motion. The core power source of the perpetual motion lay in the roots. If the roots were removed, he could overpower the perpetual motion. The problem was the monster in the roots. It was a mighty monster that even Reinheit couldn't control. Even if I had the 6th-ranked demon, Sephiroth. If he had Sephiroth as a colleague as he planned, then it would have been much easier to hit paradise. However, Sephiroth was already dead when he went to pick Sephiroth up. There is a person hunting rankers as fast as me. The first one he thought of was Kim Dokja, but there was no guarantee that it was Kim Dokja. There were too many variables in this regression. We can't enter underground. What should we do? There is no need to enter. I've already entrusted it to someone. Jung Hee-won's eyes instantly widened. You don't tell me. She noticed exactly who wasn't present right now. However, Yu Jonghyuk spoke before she could. Kim Dokja didn't leave all of you behind for no reason. Perhaps he was able to think of it because he was a regressor. He was always one-sidedly read by Kim Dokja, but this time he was about to read Kim Dokja's thoughts. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name is smiling. Yu Jonghyuk sensed the gaze, and his expression distorted. In the midst of the swarming monsters, Shin Yusung and Lee Gilyoung lay curled up against each other. The concentration of monsters was so high that the children's small bodies couldn't be found. In a moment of crisis, they helpfully tamed some 8th-grade monsters, the giant wasps. The wasps danced around Shin Yusung and Lee Gilyoung, distracting the beast's eyes. However, there was a limit to the wasp's dance. The two children's eyes met. What should we do? I don't know. Beast Master Shin Yusung and Insect Master Li Gilyang. The two of them were currently the most powerful tamers in Seoul. However, even they couldn't tame all these monsters. Their brains would explode and they would die. In fact, the limit they were capable of with taming was a 4th-grade species. The 3rd-grade species was also possible if they overdid it, but only for a moment. Am I going to die like this? The more powerful monsters trampled on the surrounding monsters, and the ecology of the whole area gradually calmed down. The devil wolves and dark splinters bared their fangs and sniffed around. The frightened wasps danced harder, but discovery was only a matter of time. There was also another threat besides the monsters. The branches of the perpetual motion moved through the monsters and rushed towards the children. Li Gilyang embraced Shin Yusung, and it seemed like the branches were going to pierce the two children. At this moment, the branches stopped due to a powerful energy that was fired from somewhere. The branches seemed panicked and finally turned away from the children. Shin Yusung turned in the direction of the energy that stopped the branches. What is that? There was a monster who saw through the wasp's dance and was staring this way. At first, Shin Yusung didn't think it was a monster. It was too big to fathom as a living creature. Its body occupied exactly 1/3 of this cavern. Yellow eyes blinked in the darkness, and all the hairs on Shin Yusung's body rose. This wasn't a monster. She couldn't think of it using this term. It was an existence that overwhelmed all monsters. All the noise in the area quieted down. Everything was bowing in awe before the monster. The being with such a ridiculous presence was looking this way with interested eyes. Who are you? It seemed to be asking. Shin Yusung wasn't willing to answer the question. Looking back, Li Gilyang was in a similar state to her. Shin Yusung raised her courage first. Hey. Li Gilyang shook his head with fright. It is impossible. We can't do it. Those who raised diverse communication to the limit could understand each other's intentions without saying anything. In any case, we will die if this continues. Shin Yusung carefully got up and staggered towards the monster. The monsters around her were snarling wildly, but the child didn't care. At this moment, Shin Yusung realized her usefulness. This is why Ajasi left me here. Only she could do this. Damn, Li Gilyang cursed and followed behind her. As soon as they approached, the presence of the huge monster became much stronger than before. Shin Yusung felt like her skin was being peeled off in front of this monster's gaze. The exclusive skill, Advanced Diverse Communication LV5, has been activated. The transparent aura shot towards the monster in an instant. Diverse communication. It was a skill made to understand different species. The moment that the aura touched the monster, Shin Yusung felt an overwhelming flood of memories. The terrible memories of the monster flowed into her head, an existence who fell to the bottom of this miserable paradise and grew up eating other monsters. Eat, despair, and scream. A monster who walked through a hell that couldn't be described using human language. The blood vessels couldn't cope with the excessive blood flow and burst. Blood flowed from Shin Yusung's nose and mouth. She shed tears of blood. Li Gilyang tried to control Shin Yusung, but the situation was already getting out of control. In the end, Li Gilyang also triggered diverse communication. The two children, who had always been fighting, joined hands at this moment. Li Gilyang's power was added and the channel of understanding widened. However, it was still an arduous opponent. Soon, blood poured from Li Gilyang's nose. Yuak. Shin Yusung understood the suffering of the strange beast and wanted to give up everything for the first time. There was the sound of a vessel being broken, as Shin Yusung and Li Gilyang's spirits collapsed little by little. It was the cost of trying to tame an ego they couldn't cope with, an opponent they couldn't touch. At this moment, Shin Yusung felt eyes on her back. It was as if someone was looking at her. A being that wasn't pushed at all by the monster's presence was watching her. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name is looking at you. Chapter 168, Kim Dokja's Love 7. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name. Shin Yusung was well aware of who it was referring to. Ajasi. It was only a gaze, but in fact, many people died because there was a gaze at an important moment. In that sense, Shin Yusung was lucky. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name is nodding. Shin Yusung received the attention of only one person in the world and stepped forward. She could do it. Her legs were numb and her lips couldn't move, but she was convinced. One step, another step. The child's small hands soon reached the outer shell of the monster. There was a very small wound on the outer shell. The startled monster's eyes shone. Shin Yusung stared straight at the monster rather than avoid the monster's eyes. Look straight at me. Looking closer, it wasn't just one wound. Numerous scars were covering the outer shell of the monster's entire body. The monster let out a small cry. Perhaps no one had seen its wounds before. The cuts were created a long time ago. These wounds were the very existence of this monster. Due to these wounds, the monster became stronger, but it also became lonely. Shin Yusung's face distorted as if she vividly felt the pain. You shouldn't be a monster just because you are hurt. Shin Yusung slowly touched the monster's injuries. However, they were wounds that couldn't be healed no matter how long passed. That didn't mean she would give up. There would be a miracle. Just like Kim Dokja saved the 41st round Shin Yusung, even those who couldn't be healed could be saved. Shin Yusung saw the roots of the perpetual motion that pushed down on the monster. Perhaps this monster had been tied up in this place for a lifetime. Shin Yusung pulled out a golden fruit. Ancient Beast's Fruit. It was the SSS-grade item that emerged from the random box Kim Dokja had given to her one day. It was a consumable item that could be used to tame an upper-grade monster that couldn't be tamed. She slowly bowed to the monster and said, "Let's go together." It felt like paradise was experiencing an earthquake, and Reinhardt shouted in a baffled manner. "QQYW, what is this?" The perpetual motion suddenly collapsed. Little by little, the plant's branches and leaves were wilting. The supplied energy was drifting to a distant place. By the time Reinhardt realized something was wrong, the branches in the air were already breaking. How can? Reinhardt started vomiting. Sap poured out like it was blood. Something was eating at the base of the perpetual motion. As the eerie teeth penetrated the sharp roots, Reinhardt screamed like his body was being torn apart. The being tied to the roots of paradise for a long time was now destroying the roots. The perpetual motion lost power and started to collapse. And no. Something huge exploded from under the ground. It didn't have a rating because it had never been revealed to the world. It had a huge dragon's body, a demon's wings, and the eyes of an insect. It was the ultimate monster that evolved from the interbreeding of demon species, insect kings, and other monster species. Everything in paradise saw this miracle, and Yu Jonghyuk was one of them. Chimera Dragon. This was the real monster of paradise. The power was close to the second grade, but its potential was beyond the first grade. Despite starting from the bottom, it could threaten even a dragon, the strongest monster species. Yet the bleeding Shin Yusung and Lee Gilyung were riding on its back. Yong Hee-won exclaimed with joy, "Yusung, Gilyung." The two children had done it after all. The Chimera Dragon roared, and all the monsters in paradise withdrew at once. There were those who escaped back underground, those who were frightened unconscious on the spot, and those who escaped beyond the walls. In the midst of this mess, Reinhardt staggered away from the perpetual motion and ran away. Yu Jonghyuk didn't miss this opening. The breaking the sky sword moved, and Reinhardt wasn't able to escape the sword. Ahu Kyuhyoka. Black blood poured from his mouth. No matter how powerful a demon he was, he couldn't survive his heart being pierced. Reinhardt slowly collapsed, and Yu Jonghyuk and the party members approached him. The dying master of paradise said, all of that in the end. It is nothing but a small play for those big shots." Yu Jonghyuk stared down at the bleeding and muttering Reinhardt. Reinheit stared at the perpetual motion disappearing in the sky, and his breathing became rough. You might not believe it, but I just wanted to create a good world. Some people who heard this yelled at him. They were all people who had been protected by paradise. Some called him a hypocrite, while others shouted that they should immediately kill Reinheit. Now that they knew the secret of paradise, they no longer protected Reinheit. However, none of them moved. It was because Yu Jonghyuk didn't allow it. Tears flowed from Reinheit's eyes. I know. Reinheit slowly closed his eyes at the short answer. Yu Jonghyuk spoke once again. Everybody knows. Of course they knew. Reinheit burst out laughing when he saw the life that he lived was so easily seen. Strange. Why do I feel like you actually understand? Yu Jonghyuk stared down at Reinheit. It wasn't in this round of regression, but Yu Jonghyuk had also sympathized with Reinheit's will. The memories of raising paradise together and then destroying paradise were still clear. As if to reciprocate the feelings, Reinheit spoke in a pained voice. You will go to the next floor. The next floor. This was the location of the last scenario of Dark Castle. You won't find what you are looking for. This castle, it is just the constellation's playground, so be careful. The next floor. At this moment, Reinheit's body exploded. Yu Jonghyuk stared silently into the air where the Dakibus were smiling. Nah, that is prohibited. Right, this isn't fun. Then the messages of the constellations came like they had been waiting. Many constellations admire the performance of the incarnation, Yu Jonghyuk. The constellations of the absolute good system agree with the judgment of Yu Jonghyuk. Some constellations express regret over the collapse of paradise. Many constellations have sponsored 150,000 coins. Yu Jonghyuk's expression didn't change. The eyes of joy or sorrow weren't revealed. You have defeated the demon Marquis Reinheit. 150,000 coins have been acquired. The legendary grade story, Paradise of Despair, has been acquired. Your Dark Castle ranking has been adjusted. A new main scenario has appeared. Main Scenario 10, 73rd Demon King, is temporarily opened. Everything was so perfectly solved that he couldn't do better. It didn't follow his plan, but he raised his Dark Castle ranking, collected coins, and got a clue about the next scenario. Nevertheless, Yu Jonghyuk didn't know what these complicated emotions were. He looked down at his hands and started brooding. Our savior. You are the savior. He looked back at the shouts and saw people rushing towards him. They treated him as a messiah as people knelt before him and cried. They were grateful to him for destroying paradise. Thank you very much. If it wasn't for you, Yu Jonghyuk heard these words and looked back down at his bloody hands. Then he realized the identity of these emotions. Originally, he had no intention of saving these people. The people of paradise weren't important to him at all. If Reinheit saw them as a sacrifice for paradise, Yu Jonghyuk considered them a sacrifice to clear the scenario. Thank you. Yu Jonghyuk listened to the voices and thought about it. Since when did this happen? From the second regression? No, perhaps the precursor had already been there. His goal was to finish all the scenarios and save the world. Under this tremendous conviction, he kept running forward. On this lonely and slow run, he was worn down bit by bit. There was no meaning in saving the world if everyone was dead. Yet he stood by and watched people die. It was as if he took the sacrifices for granted. After seeing Reinheit's death, Yu Jonghyuk started to rethink his goal for the first time. Can I ask for your name? Someone asked for his name. Being famous in the star stream was directly related to the strength of the story. By answering with his own name, he would be able to gain new achievements. Yu Jonghyuk was well aware of this. Yu Jonghyuk thought for a moment before slowly opening his mouth. My name is Kim Dokja. My name is Kim Dokja. As I was observing using third person's viewpoint, I heard Yu Jonghyuk's words and felt a chill. A new achievement has been added to your fifth story. The inhabitants of paradise will remember the liberator of paradise, Kim Dokja. The lone messiah story has become even richer. This situation didn't make sense. I panicked when I saw that the people of paradise would remember the name Kim Dokja. No, why was my name listed all of a sudden? The constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is shedding tears at this true comradeship. Uriel, who had been quiet for a while, started jumping with excitement. I would have scolded her previously, but after the banquet, harsh words couldn't emerge. However, that Yu Jonghyuk bastard, he was really mysterious. That egoist couldn't hand his achievements to other people. Did he want to make friends with me now? It wasn't possible. That reminded me, all the party members except for myself and Han Soo-young were gathered in one place. No, Gong Pilju wasn't present. Damn, where did that guy go? By the way, why are you looking for Dokja Ajasi? The people who were excited about the Chimera Dragon tamed by Shin Yusung and Lee Gilyoung started talking about me. The faces of the party members changed after hearing Yu Sanga's explanation. I wasn't too surprised. Yu Sanga must have stolen the prophecy from the Moeri. Perhaps like Dionysus, she was struggling to save me. Ajasi will die by the person he loves most. Incarnation Kim Dokja will be killed by the person he loves most. The party members had extremely confused expressions. Yong Hee-won looked puzzled, Shin Yusung was concerned, and Lee Hyun-sung was struggling with something. Lee Ji-hai was the first one to open her mouth. Ajasi will just revive again after dying. Isn't it fine? Yu Sanga replied to Lee Ji-hai's question. It is a good thing, but I don't know how many times he can resurrect. It is a prophecy of Olympus, and it is that easy to avoid. Yong Hee-won's words caused the party members to look serious again. They were this worried about me. Yong Hee-won asked, then who is the person Dokja SSI loves most? Don't we need to know this first? Chapter 169, Kim Dokja's Love 8. Everyone made expressions of belated realization. They understood that they hadn't thought of the fundamental problem. At this moment, Lee Ji-hai opened her mouth again. Lee Ji-hai raised her hand. I felt somewhat uneasy. By the way, yes, Ji-hai, do you know something? No, you don't think it is me. What bullshit was this girl saying? Lee Ji-hai's comment seemed to relax the party members. Yong Hee-won asked, what, did Dokja SSI do something, that man towards a minor? No, that's not it. Then, I just thought about it using common sense. I am a high school girl, then he should like me. The party members ignored Lee Ji-hai and continued the discussion. It was Yong Hee-won who gave her opinion first. My guess is that Dokja SC's most loved person is Yu Sanga SSI. Yu Sanga was startled. She was so surprised that I was hurt. Why me? It should be like this. In fact, Yu Sanga SC's beauty, well, I don't need to mention it. The members nodded, and Yu Sanga's face turned red. Yong Hee-won kept speaking. You are running around everywhere to save Dokja SSI. I honestly think it would be strange if Dokja SSI doesn't like Yu Sanga SSI. Certainly, there was no one who wouldn't like Yu Sanga. She was pretty, kind, had a good personality. There was no denying it. I'm just a work colleague and received help from Dokja SSI. Yu Sanga acted like it was a difficult situation before she suddenly hit back at Yong Hee-won. I actually thought it was Hee-won SSI. Yes, me. Yes, I think that Dokja SSI is Hee-won SSI. Yong Hee-won was surprised by the unexpected counterattack, and her eyes widened. Lee Hyun-sung also jumped with shock. It was an interesting hypothesis for me as well. This, Dokja SSI is really kind to Hee-won SSI. He gave you equipment, and Hee-won SSI seemed to smile very well when talking to Dokja SSI. Certainly, there seemed to be such a thing. It was very easy for me to converse with Yong Hee-won. It was in the sense that she was a character I found and raised. The confused Yong Hee-won shook her hands with a flushed face. No, wait a minute, that. The party members started to gossip again. It didn't feel good. Lee Ji-hai stood alone and muttered Kim Dokja is trash. No, I didn't do anything wrong. This time it was Lee Gilyoung who interrupted. I don't think love necessarily means love between a man and woman. Maybe, then what do you think, Gileong? Dr. Hyung likes me. Why do you say that? That. Lee Gileong agonized over the question before starting to cry. No matter how I thought about it, I couldn't find a reason why I would love him. Then Lee Hyun-sung spoke. Hum. Perhaps it is comradeship. People simultaneously stared at Yoo Jong-hyuk. Yoo Jong-hyuk, who was standing with his arms crossed, frowned. What are you looking at? Lee Ji-hai and Yong Hee-won were whispering to each other. Perhaps. Right, isn't this right? The constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is nodding violently. At this time, the quietly listening Shin Yu-sung raised her hand. Excuse me. The party members tacitly realized something. Among them, the one who might know my mind best was my incarnation Shin Yu-sung. Why yes, Yu-sung, speak. Do you know anything? Shin Yu-sung slowly shook her head. The expressions of the party members were disappointed. However, Shin Yu-sung's words weren't over yet. Why don't you just ask Ajasi? What Duchess say how? I suddenly felt cold. Shin Yu-sung was looking exactly where I was watching them. As always, my ominous feeling was correct. My lovely incarnation smiled and pointed at me. Ajasi is listening to our conversation after all. Damn. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name is wrong. Again. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name is wrong. One more time. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name says he was really wrong. After repeatedly apologizing, the party members, especially Yong Hee-won and Yu Sanga, barely forgave me. Yong Hee-won said, then, who is the person Dr. SSI loves most? I was about to answer when Lee Hyun-sung spoke up. Come to think of it, it might be no one here. That reminds me, Dr. SSI left with that woman. The name Han Soo-young, Yong Hee-won also added. Yu Sanga's expression hardened at Han Soo-young's words. Are you with that woman right now? Yu Sanga's expression was greatly disappointed because she didn't like Han Soo-young. I needed to speak before things got worse. I took a deep breath and sent an indirect message. The constellation, who doesn't yet have a name, says he doesn't love anyone. An unknown atmosphere covered the party members. Some were disappointed while some were excited. No, why were they so interested in the love life of others? Yong Hee-won said, you have to say it precisely. There is no one right now. According to fate, Dr. SSI will surely love someone. Well, she wasn't wrong. Yong Hee-won continued speaking. Then I will change the question. What type of style does Dr. SSI like? Is it close to one of us? No, why should I tell them? I know you are wondering why you should answer, but it is important to us. If Dr. SSI likes one of us, we might be able to stop that fate. It was slightly convincing. Fate was very powerful, but as I said, it wasn't inevitable. If I knew who I loved, I might be able to go against fate. I felt sorry that the party members were so worried about my death. However, the constellation, who doesn't yet have a name, isn't sure. In the end, Yong Hee-won was irritated. Oh, why are you so frustrating? Ajasi, it's fine to tell us. Is it the time to be polite? The constellation, who doesn't yet have a name, says there is no such thing. Damn, I had to use a lot of coins to send the indirect messages. The constellation, who doesn't yet have a name, doesn't know his heart. Dr. SSI really. The constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, is interested in the new story. The constellation, secretive plotter, wonders about your choice. The constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is glancing this way. Many constellations are choking on sweet potatoes, are your frustrating answer. Even the constellations were listening to our conversation. The constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is telling you not to deceive yourself on your heart. Some constellations declare there is no one apart from the incarnation, Yu Sanga. Some constellations support the incarnation, Shin Yu-sung. Some constellations who love true friends support the incarnation, Lee Hyun-sung. This was an utter mess. The constellation, demon-like judge of fire, has a good idea. The next moment, An item popped out of thin air. Item information. Name affection reader. Rating SS. Description. An item that lets you know what the other person thinks about you. After pressing the button and thinking about the name and appearance of the other person, the affection number will automatically appear in the air. I became distracted the moment I saw this item. The affection reader was a luxurious item that could only be purchased by platinum members of the Dokibai bag. No, using 100,000 coins for this unhealthy entertainment. Was she crazy? As expected from an archangel, this is big, Yong Hee-won shouted. The constellation, demon-like judge of fire, says to try and use it. Then who will go first? It is Hee-won Uni's sponsor, so let her try first. Shall I? Yong Hee-won became slightly nervous once it was time to use it. I was also tense. Why was I so nervous when I was finally getting to know my heart? It felt like I was naked. I felt really strange as I saw everyone focus on the affection reader. After a while, there was a beeping sound, and the message slowly appeared. The affection score of the constellation, Kim Dokja, towards the incarnation Yong Hee-won, is 54 points. The nervous Yong Hee-won was disappointed when she saw the score. 54 points. Is that high? I want to try next. Lee Ji-hai took away the reader and cried out playfully as she pressed the button. Let me know Kim Dokja's heart. The affection score of the constellation, Kim Dokja, towards the incarnation Lee Ji-hai, is 6 points. Lee Ji-hai was in a daze as the other members used the reader. Then it was Lee Gil-young, Lee Hyun-sung, and Shin Yu-sung. Their scores were 49 points, 50 points, and 56 points respectively. In the corner, Lee Ji-hai was muttering, Kim Dokja is trash. On the other hand, Shin Yu-sung was excited. Finally, only Yu Sanga and Yu Jonghyuk were left. Jae Jonghyuk SSI first. I have no intention of joking around. Yu Jonghyuk went to search the monster corpses in the distance, and all eyes naturally turned to Yu Sanga. Yu Sanga took the reader, then just before she used it. The constellation Queen of the Darkest Spring presents a special item to incarnation, Yu Sanga. Clothes fell out of the air, and the clothing of Yu Sanga changed. It was into a black Chinese dress with a black garter belt. Yu Sanga stuttered at the sudden change. TT this is. I felt desperate at the sight of Yu Sanga and inwardly cursed. That damn granny of Olympus. Yong Hee-won, who didn't know anything, nodded. Ah, it is a constellation event. Sanga Nuna, come forward. Yu Sanga pressed the button. The affection score of the constellation, Kim Dokja, towards the incarnation Yu Sanga, is 481 points. 481 points, isn't that crazy? Doesn't this confirm it? Dokja SC's favorite person is really. Yu Sanga was stuttering with a red face when Lee Ji-hai felt something strange and opened her mouth. No, wait, Sanga Uni, can you lend me those clothes? Yes. Lee Ji-hai entered a nearby building to change clothes before pressing the button of the reader. The affection score of the constellation, Kim Dokja, towards the incarnation Lee Ji-hai, is 481 points. Everyone was speechless. I couldn't say anything through my shame. Lee Ji-hai shouted ridicule towards the air. Yong Hee-won grabbed her belly and shook as she laughed, and Yu Sanga muttered with blank eyes. It isn't a person he loves most. Lee Gil-young and Lee Hyun-sung were shaking their heads. Shit, this was why I didn't want to do this. Shin Yu-sung was shivering as she watched me. I wanted to apologize when I saw my incarnation's reaction, but Shin Yu-sung shouted first. Ajasi. Yes, sorry Yu-sung, Ajasi, what's wrong, Ajasi? The pale Shin Yu-sung stretched out a hand towards the air. There was something strange. Shin Yu-sung's voice became distant, and my vision swirled as I became dizzy. Wait, this was perhaps. The next moment, my consciousness was cut off along with the message. You have died. Chapter 170, Reading Again 1. I remembered the moment I read a novel for the first time. The texture of the soft paper touching my fingertips, the black letters blooming on a white field, the texture of the page I folded with my hands. It isn't important to read the letters. The important thing is where the letters lead you. My mother, who loved books, used to say this. At least for me, it wasn't just a saying. The gaps in the black print. My own little snow garden lay in between the letters. This space, which was too small for someone to go into, was a perfect place for a child who liked to hide. Every time a pleasant sound was heard, the letters stacked up like snow. In it I became a hero. I had adventures loved and dreamt. Thus I read and read again. I remembered the first time I was about to finish a book. It was like being deprived of the world. The protagonist and supporting characters walked off with the sentence, "They lived happily ever after," and I was left alone at the end of the story. In my vanity and sense of betrayal, my young self struggled because I couldn't stand the loneliness. This is the end. Perhaps it was similar to learning about death. For the first time, I realized that something was finite. My mother said, "This is the end. There isn't anything that comes next. There is no next." My mother was cold, as she told me a brutal truth. However, just because it is the end doesn't mean you've seen the whole story. Then she gave me wise advice. Yes, read it again. Reread the finished story. As a child, I didn't know what this meant. Why read a story I already know? If you read it again, it will definitely be a different story. I don't want to. I was stubborn because I was afraid of feeling the deprivation again. Then my mother said, "Do you want to read it together?" Thus, I learned to read again. At first, I only saw the main character's position. The second reading showed the position of the supporting character, and the third reading showed the position of the enemy. The story changed every time I read it. The story was over, but it wasn't over. The story wouldn't end unless the reader gave up on the story. I still thought about it often. What if my mother had said something else at that time? All fiction was fake, and it would just be a loss of my life if I read it. Would I then have a lot of friends? What if I didn't study hard, wasn't bullied, and didn't run away from the reality given to me? Sparks appeared in the air, and the flowing memories were broken. "Kim Dokja, you look relaxed." I turned my head and saw someone standing in the darkness. It was a presence that could easily pierce other people's dreams. Apart from a mighty God, the only possible people who could do this were prophets. However, the person here was Anna Croft. Is fate bearable? I knew this face. It was a crowned wanderer dressed in old clothes. That reminded me there was a prophet among the constellations. Poked out his eyes. It was King Oedipus of Olympus, who I met at the banquet. King Oedipus said to me, "Your fate is approaching." Fate, hasn't it already been realized? Aren't I dead as you planned? This isn't a fate that can be avoided with a shameful story. You have to decide which side you will stand on soon. I believe you will make the right choice. I'm not on anyone's side. King Oedipus laughed. You will definitely come to Olympus. It is because no incarnation fits the story of Olympus as much as you. What are you talking about? Before I could finish speaking, my memories came back. Dokja. Shit, I remembered this. It was a bloody living room. My mother was holding a knife and standing in front of a dead man. From now on, I will read all of this again. My mother smiled towards me and said, "Thus you have to remember well, understood?" A nightmare was coming towards me. I heard screaming. King Oedipus's voice was heard as if he was laughing at all the memories. Succeed the lightning carnival. Otherwise you will die forever in the following scenarios. The attribute 8 lives has been activated. Your body will be resurrected. My breath burst out of me like amniotic fluid. The second head of the snake has been sacrificed. The power of the head is intelligence. My cold skin turned warm again and my stretched muscles gained strength. This was the fourth death I had experienced. Once against the fire dragon, once against the disaster of floods, and once when dealing with nirvana. At this point, I should think about whether Yu Jonghyuk was the sunfish or if I was the sunfish. Where is this place? I looked around, but I couldn't tell where I was. I only saw a white cloud-like ground and an open sky. Was this dark castle? The bonus effect has sped up the actions of your brain. Due to the resurrection bonus, my judgment of the situation became clearer and faster. I decided to look at it again from the beginning. First, there was the biggest question. Why did I die? I had been using third person's viewpoint to watch Paradise and left my body with Han Soo-young. Suddenly, my consciousness blurred and the death message emerged. There was only one conclusion. Someone killed me while I was asleep. Who was it? Han Soo-young. A new achievement has been added to your fifth story. People will know you as the Messiah who bears shame. I died at a strange time, so a weird achievement was added to my story. I didn't think it was actually shameful. The prophecy was, Incarnation Kim Dokja will be killed by the person he loves most. Then to kill me, they must be someone I loved. Hey Kim Dokja, you survived. In the distance, Han Soo-young was walking this way. What on earth happened? An ambush. Han Soo-young grumbled as she looked at the cloud field. It was a place where nothing could be seen except for floating clouds. It was an overly peaceful scene to be called an ambush. As soon as you fell asleep, some people appeared who were after you. I tried to stop them, but it didn't work. You ended up with a fatal wound and I carried you away while crying. Suddenly, I appeared in this place. The story flowed as naturally as the clouds, but it was unbelievable. The exclusive skill Lie Detection LV2 is activated. You have confirmed that the statement is true. Did you see the faces of those who attacked? Everybody was wearing a mask and I couldn't see properly. I saw a few people using detect attributes, but I didn't know them. The 3-day journey had made Han Soo-young considerably stronger. Now Han Soo-young would be 20th in the Dark Castle rankings. Yet the people broke through her to kill me, then brought us here. I couldn't come up with a plausible group, no matter how hard I thought. You didn't find out anything else. By the way, aren't you really relaxed? Who was the one suffering for 3 days? 3 days? You have been dead for 3 days, didn't you know? That reminded me, 8 lives had a bit of a wait time. 3 days, damn. What happened to the other party members? Surely they hadn't already passed on to the next scenario. If so, all my plans would go wrong. Han Soo-young sighed. No matter how far I go, there are only clouds. I have already given up. Is that why you released your clones? Han Soo-young's clones were training in various parts of the cloud field. Han Soo-young training in hidden weapons technique. Han Soo-young training her footwork. Each Han Soo-young was devoted to one skill. It is my own training. I didn't want to waste time waiting for you, and once I take back my clones, my skill proficiency increases quickly. Somehow, I discovered the secret behind how Han Soo-young could become so strong in such a short time. What, are you a black square? I'm a black square, damn, it is filtering something like this. Well, I have an idea of what you wanted to say. In any case, she didn't seem like just a plagiarist writer anymore. I was suddenly curious. The original description in Ways of Survival didn't describe the avatar skill in detail. It wouldn't be bad to learn a bit more about this skill. Are there no constraints on the skill? You can make infinite number of clones as long as you have the magic power. That would be a scam. Of course there are restrictions. Every time I use the skill, I share some of my memories with the avatar. Some of your memories? Then what about after the avatar dies? Then I will lose the memories. I felt a bit surprised when Han Soo-young responded casually. Wasn't it a skill that could give her Alzheimer's if she made a mistake? Han Soo-young read my thoughts and smiled. Don't worry, I usually use unnecessary memories. In addition, the memories will come back if I recover the clones. Sometimes, it is a problem because some go out of control. Out of control. The first time I tried creating a clone using Avatar, I gave away too many of my memories and it went out of control. Is that possible? Then did you lose those memories? Han Soo-young shrugged. I don't know, but now I use small memories so it's fine. You just think that you're fine. Shut up. A clone ended up having important memories due to a mistake. I shivered as I thought about another Han Soo-young that might still be moving around somewhere in Seoul. 1B1, the clones turned into smoke and returned to Han Suyong. It was probably to recover the accumulated skills proficiency. Han Suyong suddenly exclaimed, "Ah, there was something I didn't say, I just remembered. A constellation came looking for me when you died." Why give such an important memory to her clone? I forgot the name, but the constellation belonged to a nebula, Vedas or Tamna. These names were dangerous. Regardless of how I felt, Han Suyong muttered in a relaxed manner. I heard some ambiguous words, "Make the right choice." Can't you remember it properly? I'm sorry. If I recall all my avatars, then I can remember. Oh, it was a strange Goryeo warrior. Goryeo warrior. He left without saying anything. He stared at your dead body for a moment and left straight away. If it was a Goryeo warrior, it was probably Chiak Yungyong. There were also Olympus, Vedas, and Tamna. The big nebulae were moving, so it seemed like something was going to happen. At this moment, something crossed my mind. Wait, a constellation appeared directly. It wasn't an avatar. Yes, it was a symbol. Why? Don't you know the problem with this? No matter how symbolic, a constellation can't appear in the scenario area without consuming a lot of probability. The constellations feared probability the most and wouldn't descend as a symbol. I slowly looked around. I think I know where this place is. This place was a ward, but it wasn't a normal ward. It was a ward where constellations could appear in symbolic form. Han Suyong belatedly noticed something: the mechanical gateway array method. The mechanical gateway array method, it was a technique used by constellations who mastered the principles of the 5 elements, 4 heavenly divisions, and 3 calamities. By the way, it was hard to see people use this technique. Zhuge Liang of China could use it freely, yet this was the Korean peninsula. Then, "Won't you come out?" I spoke to the air. With the exception of Zhuge Liang, there was one other constellation who could use it freely. It was also a constellation I had already met. It seems it is impossible to deceive you with the shape of a constellation. A voice was heard as clouds gathered in the air and formed the image of a person. It was a woman in her 30s wearing a prison uniform. Haven't we met before? It isn't a very good reunion. The constellation, First Spiritualist of Joseon, is giggling at you. First Spiritualist of Joseon, Jian Wuche's incarnation. She was the first limb of the King of Wanderers. The king is waiting for you. Somehow I knew who had killed me. This situation appeared to be the worst. Either way, I had no other choice. I nodded and said, "Guide me."